Time for another edition of the Improbability Engine. I'm Will Aubrey. My buddy Joe Darnell is here as well. And Joe, as always, we start with our moment of what?
Yeah, and I'm going to start from the world of college basketball, actually pretty close to home here. Eastern Illinois, this is exhibition season, which is the crazy season of college basketball. You get to see some teams go against each other that you normally wouldn't see, and you get results that you just couldn't plan for. A wrinkle thrown into this year is that the NCAA is allowing another exhibition game that you can sell tickets to between Division I teams as long as it's done to benefit a charity, which is a fantastic thing. And a list of things the NCAA does wrong, this is actually a good one. And one of those games was between Eastern Illinois University, the Panthers, the OVC's own Panthers, got to play host to the University of Illinois, the big flagship school of the state, in an exhibition game. And wouldn't you know it, those plucky Panthers were able to go and beat the Fighting Illini of Illinois. What a wonderful outcome. That's a huge hang-your-hat game. At least until you get to the next exhibition game against the University of Southern Indiana, a non-Division I team that EIU then loses. So in a span of a couple weeks, you have the Eastern Illinois Panthers beating Illinois and losing to Southern Indiana. Made me say what?
I understand that. I think it's terrific that the University of Illinois was willing to go to EIU for that game.
Absolutely.
There's no way the University of Kentucky would come to Murray and play down here, even for a charity exhibition game. The thing about beating Illinois and losing to Southern Indiana reminds me of something that the Eastern Illinois coach, Jay Spoonhour, and I talked about last year. He told me at the beginning of last season that they had been inconsistent the year before.
Right.
And so, I asked him what the key was to them being consistent in the coming year. And he said, I don't know. It's not like they did it on purpose. They weren't evil. But I really like Jay. He's a good guy.
Well, he's got that program going in the right direction. It's just going to take it's a slow slog. Same thing with some of those teams in the OVC that are on the bottom. The Illinois schools with the budgetary issues they've had to deal with, and just getting that stuff brought around. You look for that. But Jay Spoonhour's a good coach.
My moment of what? Heading into this season, there were numerous people who were saying, well, in the NBA this year, it's Golden State and Cleveland. Nobody else has a chance. The season's going to be boring.
Yep.
Cleveland Cavaliers are 5-6. Now, somebody forgot to tell Cleveland that they were going to sail to the Eastern Conference Championship.
What's funny about it is it's not LeBron. LeBron is playing out of his mind. He's playing actually above his numbers during this 11-game stretch. But you're right, they're 5-6. It makes you wonder, how good was Kyrie Irving?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And that actually connects to what we're going to spend a lot of our time talking about today, Racer basketball. Because I think Kyrie Irving, one thing that he did for the Cleveland Cavaliers is quite similar to what John Morant does for Murray State. In that game against McKendree, you could tell when Murray State had Morant in the game, along with Stark and Miller, giving them three guys who were big-time offensive threats, it made them almost impossible to guard.
Right.
Because if you got two guys to worry about, that's difficult, but you can deal with that. If you got three and they spread the floor, it's really hard to make sure that you contain all three of them.
Absolutely. And for Racer fans who care to remember back, if you remember Billy Kennedy and the team that beat Vanderbilt, that team, every single time they went on the floor, they had multiple scoring options. Any particular player could have an outstanding offensive game and take over. And that makes a team almost impossible to stop. You look at guys, that team had Ivan Aska. It had Isaiah Cannon, who was coming off the bench. You had B.J. Jenkins, who averaged double figures. You had a bunch of guys that could go out there and do it. And I think you're right about Morant. I think the key to Morant's game is allowing Stark to move off the ball. I mean, that's a fantastic thing you can do. Now you've got that ability. And it brings me to another guy on the perimeter, and that's Byron Hawkins.
Before we talk about Hawkins, I want to talk some more about Morant.
Okay, you go ahead.
That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because every recruit almost at Murray State ever signs,
right,
there are people who tell you, he's the best thing ever.
Right.
He's going to be a superstar.
Yeah.
He's an NBA player.
Right.
And it is almost never true. But
Right.
Ja Morant is the truth, baby.
He is really good. You know what it reminds me of? So whenever I think about these young guys coming in, I always remember the leap between 8th grade and freshman year of high school. You know, the difference between an 8th grader and a freshman in high school and how you're viewed is exactly what these guys coming from their senior year of high school into the freshman year at Division I college basketball. That's a big leap. And not everybody gets it quickly. You know, there are some guys, Ivan Aska, we mentioned him earlier. Ivan Aska had a great freshman year, was fantastic. Wasn't perfect, but was really, really good. Was an incredible freshman. Cameron Payne, for all the talk about how good Cameron Payne was in his 2 years at Murray State, you could look at that first semester as a freshman, and it was erratic. Now, you saw flashes of pure brilliance. There were times you'd look at him and you go, this guy is amazing. And then you'd have games like the Valparaiso game, where he had 20 points, but he took 126 shots or whatever. And then the next game, he had like 4 points. There's a process to learning. And what I like about Morant is he seems adaptable enough in his game to play off the ball, to play with the ball in his hands.
Great court vision.
Great court vision. And you cannot underestimate that. That's something that when we talk about Cameron Payne had elite court vision from go, to the point where guys had to learn to keep your eye on the ball because he hit you in the back of the head with a pass that you didn't see coming.
And Morant also is great going to the basket.
Right.
And in addition to that, his athletic ability is just insane.
Absolutely.
He had 24 points and 9 rebounds and 6 assists.
Right.
Just
That's a good way to start your college career. I don't care if it's against McKendree or if it's against, Callaway Middle School.
You were talking about how players develop.
Yes.
And I've thought about this.
Okay.
And, Michael Jordan, I believe, was born in 1964.
Right.
So he was 7 years younger than me. When I was 11 and he was 4, I could have kicked his butt. Okay? Made him cry. But
I'm not sure that's true, but I'll go along with it for right now.
But, look at how he developed.
Exactly.
And you never know.
That's it. And you look, and to me, that's what I like about what Morant offers. You're seeing the high side. And what's great about it is, because you've got Stark and a player that I'm going to talk about here in a minute in Hawkins, you've got the ability to put Morant in situations where he can be extremely successful right now. He doesn't have to carry the load the way Cameron Payne did his freshman year. You just are able to say, okay, well, we're going to do this. We did Isaiah Cannon. We're going to put you in situations where your skill set and what you can do well right now is going to be extremely valuable. You build that confidence. You keep that confidence high. That's what you do when you develop a guy. I think that's a positive thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how he comes through.
Talk about Hawkins.
Byron Hawkins. Now, Byron Hawkins had a fairly quiet first game, but I want to talk about something that to me is more telling about the player than one exhibition game stats. Byron Hawkins was named a team captain by his teammates. Now, there are 3 team captains. Jonathan Stark, no brainer. You got to think Jonathan Stark's got to be a team captain. The guy's, he averaged, 20 points, 5 assists a game last year.
I think it was actually 21.
And there you go, 21 and 5, one of like 4 players to do so. Incredible. Put him on the list of team captains. That's the way it should be. Terrell Miller, unsung. If a guy who can average 16 and 11 16 points, 11 rebounds a game as a forward, and shoot 35% from three at 6'8". If that guy can be unsung, Terrell Miller is unsung. That guy is an incredible basketball player. He's named a team captain.
Terrell Miller. Now he's been sung.
Okay. So the third guy who was named team captain is Byron Hawkins. Now, this is a guy that transferred in from Towson in the Colonial. Not bad basketball. I would say arguably equivalent in a lot of ways to the OVC. And this is a guy who averaged double-digit scoring. So he comes to Murray as a point guard who has shown the ability to score at the Division I level. Now, he has sat out for a year. You're going to have some rust. That's just going to happen. I'm telling you, this guy, there's something special about him. His teammates have seen it. They've elected him a captain. I look forward to seeing what he does this season.
Taking a look at the team as a whole,
Yeah.
I thought they played well offensively. It's clear that they're going to continue to push the ball and shoot a lot of threes. They took 27 threes.
Yeah.
And so it's clear they're going to play at a fast pace.
I have no problem with that.
The defense left something to be desired. I thought that they they gave up far too many unchallenged three-pointers.
Right.
And there were times they tended to lose their man on the interior. But having said that, one thing that I suspect a lot of people didn't notice that Matt McMahon pointed out when I was talking to him earlier this week was the job that the forwards did in running the floor and creating driving lanes for the guards.
Absolutely.
And they really did a good job of doing that. Now, people may not understand how forwards, or for that matter, any player running the floor creates driving lanes. And there are a couple of ways to do that. One, obviously, is by setting a screen.
Right.
But that's not what Coach McMahon was talking about here. The more people that you have that are running and getting out on the break, the more it spreads the defense. And
Absolutely.
that's what creates driving lanes.
Well, one of the things that I know that that Coach Kennedy talked about during his time here, and Coach Prohm did as well, was the idea of a secondary break. This idea that if you're all hustling and you have to be accounted for by the defense, that you can be opportunistic in your offense. Meaning that before a team can set up their defense, you're already hitting a high percentage shot, a layup in this instance, or a floater. The best teams in recent history for the Racers have done that extraordinarily well. They've had guys who would run the floor, and they had threats at any given point to burn a team who was not sprinting back. Now, there's a couple ways that this is very valuable. You mentioned the first one off the top. You just score more points, you open things up, you hit higher percentage shots. An incredibly valuable thing to do. The other side of it is you fatigue teams and their bigs. Now, one thing I know is that there are no teams in America who have what a coach would call enough game-ready big men. Because there just aren't enough game-ready big men in the world for a coach. A coach wants to have all the game-ready big men he can have. So if you are running their starting forwards, if your forwards can run their forwards, they gotta sub guys out more. Now, that doesn't affect you in the first exhibition game of the season so much, but it's like body blows in boxing. If you do this for a full season, if you're able to do this over and over and over again, once you get into those grind out games, the Saturday game after the Thursday game in conference in February, those are tough games. Those games where you've got guys who are, if you're able to keep doing that and be the team that, another coach term, sets the tempo. If you're able to do that, you'll beat teams with players that might not be as good. And I'm not saying that our guys aren't good, but I mean, let's look at Eastern Kentucky's bigs, just as an example. Okay, they've got two of the better big men in the Ohio Valley Conference. I think that's abundantly clear. Just looking at him, Jackson Davis, the transfer from Butler, I think he's going to be fantastic this season. I think him and the other kid, what's his name? The other forward that EKU has.
Nick Mayo.
Nick Mayo from Maine. Mayo and Davis are going to be two of the best interior guys in the conference. They are good. They are that good. But what's after those guys? What if those guys have to sit? There's going to be a huge drop-off. That team is going to be fundamentally different if Nick Mayo and Jackson Davis are on the bench. Or if one is on the bench, because you've got to keep one of those guys out there to even have any offense at all.
Another big man in the league to watch is the kid down at Jacksonville State, Giga.
Yeah.
He scored 30. And
but he did that against Louisville. That doesn't count. That's like doing it against Brescia.
Scored 30 against Louisville.
Yeah.
That's pretty doggone impressive. So anyway,
no, but you look at that. That's the same.
Looking at Murray State's bigs.
Right.
Jalen Dupree got the start.
Yep.
Which I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I thought that was fine. Anthony Smith. Now Dupree didn't really stand out to me. Anthony Smith showed incredible energy.
Yes.
When he was in the game. There were things that he did, and he played good defense. There were some things that he did not do well that if he cleans up, I think he can be a factor for Murray State.
Agreed.
Now, the things he didn't do well, he didn't finish around the rim. He missed several layups.
Right.
And then on two separate occasions, he failed to seal and meet the ball on receiving passes, and as a result, it got poked away and the ball was stolen. If he can clean those two things up with the energy that he shows, he might even be able to work his way into the starting lineup.
Well, you mentioned Dupree, and I want to touch on him real quick. I think he's going to be a key to the season. His ability to score on the box, he showed flashes at the end of last year of what kind of player he could be. He's 6'9", he's 250 pounds, he's strong, he's agile, and he's athletic. But he's got to stay out of foul trouble. He's got to find the game that comes to him and not try to make something happen that puts him in a position to not be in a good way. But I think you're absolutely right about Anthony Smith. That kid, it goes right to what we had heard all offseason about him. He is an absolute spark plug. He's the kind of guy you want on your team. He crashes the boards. He plays defense. Two things that we did not do very well in the post last year at all. And he does those things, and he does it with gusto, with a verve that's really powerful. And I like that. I like him as going forward in the season.
Then you've got Breon Sanchez.
Yes.
Who has not been productive before this season. There was one game where he played 37 minutes in one game last year, took one shot, got 0 rebounds.
Yeah.
You can't play guys like that. You just can't. But in the exhibition against McKendree, he took 4 shots, of which he only made 1, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It was a 15-foot jump shot. That was fine. He got 8 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds in that game. If he can be productive like that when he's on the floor, then you can put him out there.
I believe that there are 2 Breon Sanchez. I think that, and for those who don't know, I call Breon Sanchez, I call him Lefty Sanchez. I like him. I like what he offers and a potential. There are 2 different ones that we've seen at Murray State. His freshman year, at the beginning of the season, he worked into a position where he was starting and was productive. Not hugely productive, but was pretty good up until his knee injury against Belmont. Then you have post-injury Breon. Last year you saw Breon, he didn't have the explosiveness to be a rim protector. And I don't know if that's because he didn't trust his knee or what. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I think this year is pivotal for Breon. I think this is a chance. I really do. I think this is a chance for him to show what he can do at the Division I level. Now's the time for him to start getting it. That 15-foot jumper, that's a good start. That's a skill play. I like to see that. Now, do I think that every time he gets the ball down low, he should be looking for a 15-foot jumper? No. But if there's a 15-foot jumper there, you're at least able to pull that defender off the box. You know, you have to account for that as a defender. And maybe that opens something up for Miller. Maybe it opens something up for Dupree or Smith. What I would like to see from Breon is take that next step. Be productive at this level. You're a big body, son. That's great. It's time to start playing like it. Go and get some rebounds. Play some good defense without reaching and grabbing. Play good defense with your hands up and move your feet. Do what you can do against those guys, because I think he can do it. I think he's capable of doing it. It's all a question of will he do it at this point.
Coming up this weekend, Murray State on Friday has a game against Brescia at the CFSB Center.
Right.
Once again, that's a game where their opponent is overmatched. But
one would hope.
But big game coming on Monday.
Woo!
Middle Tennessee comes to town, and Middle Tennessee, they're a really good team. They just missed, I believe, the Sweet 16 last year. And
led by Giddy Potts.
Yes.
God.
And
he's not just a name, folks. He's actually really, really talented. That's a talented basketball player.
And they have a transfer, Nick King.
From Alabama, from Memphis. He's on his third Division I team.
Now, there was some discussion at the press conference the other day as to whether King is eligible to play, but he played in their exhibition game. So
one would think that he's eligible.
One would think.
No, that's the kind of guy that that to me is, he's an X-Factor type of guy. He's athletic. He's got a skill set. He's got experience playing at a fairly high level. I think he comes in and they're able to. He's able to take up some of the slack left by graduation of Reggie Upshaw. And I think that's a big deal. I think looking at Middle Tennessee, that's a good squad.
They are a good basketball
good
team.
Squad.
If Murray State gets a win in that game,
right,
then you can say, hey, we're going to be pretty good.
Let's talk about some of the home openers that we've seen in the past few years. You got Houston, you've got Illinois State, you got Middle Tennessee this year. That's pretty good. Those are good. Those are tough games to start with.
They are indeed.
And frankly, I like it. I like those games, man. I like seeing it because they're exciting for the fans first and foremost. Middle Tennessee, that's an old school rivalry. They used to be in the OVC. You know, this is a big deal. You love beating them. You love beating the Blue Raiders. Love it. You just got to go and do it now. Last season, you watched Murray State beat Illinois State in the first game of the season. And really, if you look at both those teams' seasons, aside from that game, it never should have happened.
That game probably kept Illinois State out of the NCAA tournament.
Well, I've heard that too, and I've thought that myself, but until I see the NCAA do something smart with including a team with the resume similar to Illinois State's, it's going to be hard for me to say that one game kept them out. I think the fact that they were not, they were Illinois State, not Illinois, that kept them out of the tournament.
Okay.
I am really down on the selection process.
Oh, me too.
I mean, the NCAA has really messed this up, and so I'm not taking any pressure off of them, and I'm not blaming Illinois State for anything. They did what they were supposed to do. They went out and scheduled a tough schedule and won a lot of games.
But if you live within an hour of Murray, be at the CFSB Center on Monday night.
Absolutely.
For Murray
Bring
State,
a friend.
Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
Now,
bring a church group. Bring two church groups. Bring everybody you know.
The Murray State women's soccer team won the OVC championship.
Absolutely.
And they haven't lost a conference game during the regular season in 3 years.
Absolutely. They're fantastic.
They
so good.
will be playing at Tennessee on Saturday.
Kind of an unusual
in the NCAA
selection.
tournament.
Going back to the NCAA selection, if you look at the RPI, Tennessee and Murray State are one spot different in the RPI. In the coaches poll, Tennessee's 20, Murray State's also receiving votes, so they're in the 26 to 30 range.
Right.
And yet Murray State gets slotted to go to Tennessee. Now, I don't know exactly how to take that, but I have a bit of a problem with it. Because frankly, this Murray State team, they've done everything that was asked of them this year. They lost one game to St. Louis, 1-0. St. Louis is in the top 25.
Well, every game's 1-0.
No, they're not. But that your anti-soccer bias is showing, and that's okay because I'm going to let that go because I'm magnanimous. So the thing to notice with this is a very talented Murray State squad. Now, they had a couple dings again in the championship game against EKU. Lissy Wright had a bit of a knee issue. We're hoping that she's going to be fine going into this first round game because you're going to need all hands on deck against a top 20 program like Tennessee at their place. But I wouldn't count out the Racers. I mean, they're really fantastic. Watford up front, and you look at what they can do in their attacking third. They're a dangerous, dangerous squad.
Well, I hope they come away with a big win. It would be awesome.
I do too.
Jeremy Groves has done an incredible job with that.
Absolutely has. And you just like in any sport, it's as much coaching as it is players, and it's as much players buying in and deciding that it's important to do the things they're supposed to do. I mean, these are stars in their club teams. These are people who are quality players at their high school level. They go to college, and sometimes your role changes, and you have to develop into a new role. But fantastic play all across the board. This is a lot of fun. If you get a chance to watch this team, do it. I know that there's not many chances left, no matter what happens. Find a way to watch this game. If you're in the Knoxville area, go watch the game. If you can drive there, go watch it because they're going to put on a show. This is a team that absolutely could spring. I don't even want to call it an upset because if you're one spot different in the RPI, is it an upset if you beat them? No, I just think that you won the game. I think this is a team that could go and get that win down in Knoxville.
Anything else?
I'm reminded of the old Christmas song, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. As we come into college basketball season, we're getting ready to watch the Racers take over, and I look forward to seeing what they have to go. Is there anything that you can think of, Will?
No.
All right. Well, then I think we're good there.
That brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.